Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'd like to update everyone on the sealed market, let you know what I've been buying, what I would buy if I had room for it, what I might avoid, and then some noteworthy price movements, all that in just a sec. But first, if you like videos like this and you'd like to follow along, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment. It really does go a long way. Thank you for joining me today. I've got stuff on the table that I think is really worth talking about right now. I'm going to just go over a couple of box buy examples, and then I'd like to talk more specifically about the method that I use when I'm trying to build a little position in boxes for the sort of intermediate term before I sell them. So we can kind of talk all day about buy this, buy that. Hey, this is cheap. But if there's not a real clear reason why you're doing it or what your strategy is, I think it becomes a bit of a goose chase. So I do think it's important to be transparent about why I buy what I buy and what exactly my goal is for it. So I'll show you what I do, different iterations of that. You can use that information however you choose. Hopefully it helps inform how you buy and the limits you place on it. So just a couple of examples first to dive in, and then I'll go over that. Right now, Kaldheim, so I'd start with Kaldheim here. Kaldheim is available for $85 a box on Amazon. That's a pretty good deal because there have not been a lot of sales on Kaldheim really recently. I really like Kaldheim. It is an example, as is most on the table here, of boxes with X factors. The X factor to me, I always try to think of the little piece of extra, the little something that's in a box or in a set that makes it appealing long term. A couple of obvious examples on the table, you've got Mystical Archives in Strixhaven and then Expedition box toppers in Zendikar Rising, which they explain themselves. We've been over that before in depth. Kaldheim, though, you might think, well, what is it about Kaldheim? Well, Kaldheim has snow-covered basics in it. Those snow-covered basics are still, on average, about $1 each. Sometimes, if you're shopping on places like Card Kingdom and you just want to add a ton to your cart conveniently. So the fact that 36 packs have an average of around a $30 retail value in just the basic lands, I think is interesting. So this is the only place you can go right now to get snow-covered basics outside of Modern Horizons, which you're not going to crack Modern Horizons for snow-covered basics. If you are, tell me, because that's amazing. Or you've got to go buy them individually a la carte. So I really like Kaldheim at $85. If you've got room and you want to add to your position, this I think is a fair entry point. I don't think you're going to see fire sales much cheaper than this for something like this. Womp womp. I will bring this up because I'm still sticking to my guns on this one. Crimson Vow right now is not a tremendous deal, but I do want to talk about it. This was again available recently for around $75 if you could catch it quick enough. Crimson Vow is not being received well. I have said, numerous times before what I feel about Crimson Vow or how I feel about it. It's a distressed asset. It doesn't have much going for it, but I honestly think that it's a little strange. The rares and mythics in the set command a decent price tag. Like Strixhaven has a much steeper fall off in terms of rare and mythic value. Crimson Vow has some decent stuff, from Necro Duality and Cultivator Colossus to the Land Cycle to, Chandra Dress to Kill. Sorin the Mirthless, especially in the showcase, commands a pretty high price tag. The foil showcase Sorin is well over $100 a card. I mean, there is enough to sink your teeth into. Wow, vampire pun. I didn't realize that. Sorry. Fine, I'll stick with it. There's enough to sink your teeth into in this set for it to not really make sense at $75. Like I've said before, no Magic sealed box at launch makes sense for $75. It's worth buying. Right now, though, the best I can see is $80. And if you hang around, I think people will still continue to dump this. And you might be able to find another opening at around $75. If you feel really confident in this long term, $80 might be okay to you. I really like trying to find it at $75. I maxed myself out at $75 though a long time ago when I made my last sealed market update video. So just something to bring to your attention. Keep that in mind. The other one I'd like to talk about just before we get into strategy here, just to bring to your attention, it's not on the table because it can't be. Streets of New Capenna, I've been talking about pre-ordering the collector boosters at launch because I thought, hey, if I had done that maybe for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, I would have made out really well because those boxes are never coming back anywhere near pre-order prices. Right now, Streets of New Capenna is like 209, 215. You'll get it at the lowest pre-order price if you go through Amazon, let's say. But there are reputable sellers on eBay selling them for $199 pre-order, which is pretty interesting. If you are enticed by what you've seen so far, and you think that the gilded cards that are sort of the kind of stand-in for the chase card are rare enough to make you happy, I would strongly consider maybe doing a pre-order at $199 through a reputable seller. Just letting you know that that's out there. Let's talk strategy. I'm going to step away from this setting here to talk about my sealed box buying strategy. So I want to take it slow, take it easy, and be really clear about the information. So switching formats a little bit here, and then we'll reconvene at the table in just a moment.
All right, switching over to studio mode now. I would like to just go over really briefly the particular strategy that I use. This is my baseline kind of minimum box buying strategy for sealed booster boxes of in-print standard sets or supplemental sets like Modern Horizons or Commander Legends, Jumpstart. This is what I use to track what it is I might be able to buy a box for, what it is I want out of that purchase, like in terms of a return or a result, and then what that price is going to need to eventually be down to the penny in order for me to then say, okay, time to sell, I'll get what I want. I can then at the very least use just, precedent and recent history to say, okay, is that a reasonable price for that box to get to in the 3 years that I'm hoping it would? What's my time horizon? So here's an example. I never buy just one box of sealed product ever. That doesn't do anything for me because I always want, and this is just me, I always want to have access to the product way down the road. I want one box either to just have and collect, because people do collect sealed product. I know that sounds weird. It's like a box with cellophane on it, but people do collect sealed boxes just to have. But down the road, if I sold one to offset the cost of another, I always want access to another. So I think you can understand that, right? Here in this example, I've showed 1 through 6. So if I bought one box down to 6 boxes, I'm not buying one box. So from 2 on, here's what I would need to do. I'm assuming in all of these examples, buying a box at $90. And I'll try not to make this dry. I'm going to breeze through it. I have a link down below to a Google spreadsheet with this. This has all the formulas and such in it that plug and play. All you really need to do is change the purchase price, and the number of boxes you want to keep, and that's really it. You can change things like shipping and stuff too, but this is really it. This will do all the math for you and show you how much your return would be and how much the price needs to be. So moving on, if I bought 2 boxes at $90. My cost basis for everything is $180. These are just round numbers, right? If I want to be able to keep a minimum of 1 box, which I do, then the next column says I need $90. Obviously, right? I need to be able to pay for a $90 box. So if an eBay fee of 12.35%, which is what it is, I don't know what it'll be 3 years from now, but that's what it is today. Here's what the fee would be to sell those boxes. Here's the shipping cost per box. And then the number that I would need to sell in order to keep the quantity that I listed, which was 1, is 1. That column is just taking the number of boxes I bought and subtracting out the number that I want to be able to hang on to it. So it's saying, okay, then you got to sell this many, all right? The price that I would need the box to be in order for this to work out is the next column. So you can see in a 2-box scenario, just to be able to net $90 worth out of the sale of a single box, so that $90 basically paid me for the other box. The other box is free. You can see that needs to be pretty high. So the pre-commission price on 2 boxes is $219. After I've given up my eBay fee and shipped it, I'm pushing $40 there to sell a $219 box. So what is say round at $220 minus the $40? Well, that gets me to the $180. Okay, that's what I spent, right? that means that I'm back where I am. So I have to take my cost basis out, which is the $90, and I'm left with $90, right? I sold that box and I netted $90 out of the whole transaction. That $90 pays for the other box. So for a standard draft set to get there, I mean, it's got to not only be a powerhouse set, but it's also got to get really high. I mean, that's a high number, I think. So not to belabor the point, what this also leaves you with is if you had bought a box at $90 and sold it for $219, your percent ROI, your return is high, right? Like I sold this for way more than double what I paid for it, right? So naturally your ROI is going to be well over 100%. And then just for grins, there's the dollar ROI just from the sale. So if you move, the more you buy to hold, the easier this gets. These examples, I've got everything in here for starters with just I want to keep one box example. So you can see for visual purposes how the numbers get smaller in terms of what I need to sell it for. I go from $219 selling one box all the way down to $136 if I bought a case, right? If I bought 6 boxes, I need to sell each of them at $136 in order to be left with a free. Sorry, I need to sell all 5 at $136 in order to be left with a free one. Kind of makes sense, right? You can see this. Here's an example though. The reason that so what do I do specifically? This is a lot of options. What do? I buy a minimum of 6 boxes, or I try to, of each standard set. And it doesn't matter if it's Modern Horizons 2 or a standard set. I try to get 6 boxes. I always want to keep 2. I want 2 for the long term. This is my personal opinion. So my method, 6 boxes. I want to keep 2. The reason I want to keep 2 is I want to have one forever. I want to always be able to look up on my shelf and say, if for whatever reason I need that, there it is. And also pretty cool to look at, in terms of just collecting, right? People do collect sealed boxes. I want the other one to say, oh my gosh, it's been 20 years and this thing's worth how much? I've got a wall full of them. Finally time to let them go. Send a kid to college or something. Who knows, right? Do I want to open it? Do I want to sell off the packs? Do I want to sell the box? What do I want to do? I've got a box I can do something with, and then I've got a box where the idea is that it's just there as a solid investment piece for a long time. It's not, if you're doing 6 boxes, if you're buying 6 boxes at a time, that's not that unreasonable. See that the pre-commission price, the sale price on TCG Player or eBay that I'd need to be asking for those boxes, I'm just going to stick with the 6 for now, is $167. So that assumes that I sell all of them individually, I ship all of them individually, and I'm assuming the eBay fee in all these examples. You can certainly modify this any way you'd like. But selling those at $167 over time is a lot more reasonable to me, I think, at 6 boxes. Because if I bought 3 boxes, here's an example where I want to keep 2, my same, like, I want one forever, and then I want one to just be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Once I buy 3 boxes, that's ridiculous. I've got to sell one at $321 in order to be able to pay for the other 2. That's really stretching it. That you're talking about well over a decade probably to get a return like that. So that to me, that's why I'm like, okay, that's slightly unrealistic based on the time frame that I want to do this in. I don't want to hold these for 10 years. I want to hold these for like 3 to 5 maybe. That's what I want to do until I'm left with the 2. The 2, I'll hold them for as long as I want to. So I could go on and on and on. I won't, but this template is available. It's a Google spreadsheet link in below. I hope that it helps, but this is just a glimpse into what I'm trying to do when I tell you about boxes and deals that I see. I'm only trying to get 6 really as a baseline, and I want to get the best price possible. $90 works for me because you can see how this pencils out if I want to keep 2 boxes over time. So $90 works. Anything less than that is always awesome. Anything more, I really have to start thinking about what I'm going to get out of it and how long it's going to take. For example, when I talk about, here's one last little image. When I talk about like buying Zendikar Rising at $100, in order to do what I want, where I sell 4 and those pay for 2, it needs to sell for $184. I honestly am not scared off by trying to reach that number. I think Zendikar Rising is one of those sets that can do it. I think Neon Dynasty is also a set that can do it, for sure. Other sets, like is Crimson Vow going to be $184 in 3 years? I don't know. But that's not to say that I have to do this with every single thing I buy. And you know what? Maybe not everything's able to pay for 2 boxes. Maybe it pays for one of them and I bought the other one. Is it the end of the world to have bought a box for $90 out of your own pocket and have some skin in the game and keep it for 20 years? You have to decide. I love that I can get every nickel back that I put into it, and then sort of repeat the process. I'm just kind of rolling the money from one set to the next. It takes a while to get this going. Like I said, you can see if you start investing every 3 months and buying 6 boxes of a Magic set, and it takes you a few years until you can start selling the first from like the day you really started doing this, you're talking about tying up some serious money for a while. So maybe if you don't have that type of resource, think about the sets you really do love. Like we talked about a lot of sets so far, or we're going to, depending on when in the video this is showing up. If only 1 or 2 of those really speak to you and you love them, buy those. Like don't buy everything because you feel like you're supposed to. Buy what you like. So buy what you love is always the kind of the underlying mantra here. But anyway, let's get back to some more interesting stuff. This is available below. Thank you for humoring me here. I hope it's helpful.
So I hope that's helpful. This is again the strategy I use. I try to do a 6-box buy of anything that I want to sell in the sort of intermediate term. You can kind of see how the numbers pencil out there. I'm usually buying a 6-box here. Better visual. Boop. Throw that in. I'm using a 6-box position so that essentially these 4 I've got to sell at a rate that pays for 2. So if I paid $85 or $90 a box, I need to sell all of these for around a net of $180 to have paid for these, because I'd like to probably just keep one forever and then maybe at least have one available long term to open up or play with, because it's kind of sad to enjoy a set and then not ever leave yourself with enough left to actually go back and enjoy it, especially Ikoria. Like the Ikoria draft was so fun to me. Theros draft even was actually really fun for me. So anyway, that's my strategy. Keep that in mind. Whenever I do these videos, I don't want it to just seem like I'm arbitrarily throwing out messages that say, hey, buy now, quick, because that's really not the point. The point is to just bring to everyone's attention what I see going on in the sealed market. You can make a judgment call from there and pick up what you think you need based on the limits that you want to place on yourself. So I'm at minimum a 6-box person for standard draft sets. Stuff that I really love, like say Neon Dynasty is a good example, Zendikar Rising, I'll go over 6 because I just have a lot of faith in that product in general. So clean things up here a little bit. That's just a little glimpse into kind of the floor for me. I'm not a distributor level buyer by any means. Nor should I be. That's not necessarily my criteria here. So I'd be curious to know what your strategy or your methods or your thoughts are down below. So let's move on to a couple of other noteworthy buys that I see going on. Another one that I like right now is Theros. So Theros, the box value of Theros really popped recently. It's got an EV right now for Theros Beyond Death of around $113 a box. The rares and the mythics out toward the high end that are being used in eternal formats are really supporting this box. From Nyx Bloom Ancient and Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Shadow Spear, even Kroxa and Uro, those cards alone are like format heavyweights. And what you really need to look for, or at least what I would advocate looking for when you're sizing up a relatively in-print standard box, is the applicability to non-rotating formats. So when you have cards in Neon Dynasty, for instance, we'll get to that one in a second, that are seeing really impactful and meaningful play in Pioneer and Modern, that's a good sign, because this box rotating out of standard isn't going to plummet in value because there's really nothing that has to offer people anymore. You're sort of waiting until just the nostalgia and the overall antiquity starts to set in by nature of a box being really old for it to start getting value. And that's too long. There's a lot more that you could have done with your money instead of waiting, say, a decade to get a 50% return on a booster box. Think of like Dragon's Maze, for example. Dragon's Maze was a dud when it launched. It hardly had anything worth writing home about. To be fair, a lot of these other formats didn't exist yet. But Dragon's Maze to this day is $120 a box. It's just not been good. There's just nothing in there that really translates to other formats or that hasn't been reprinted. So anyway, not to digress about that. The stuff in Theros is supporting a high box price. This I see for $97 on eBay right now. So $97 box with a like $113, $114 EV is awesome. By and large, the EV of the box is always lagging behind the sale price at launch. Boxes we accept are $89 to $99 a piece when a set is in print and active. The EV is not usually close to that. Sorry, not close, like it's so like there's a chasm between them, but the EV is always sort of lagging the box price a little. That's generally what happens. When the EV eclipses the box price, you have a buying opportunity, I think. So if Theros is $97 and it's selling for and it's got an EV of 113, that signals a buy to me. Are there other sets like that out right now? Close. Kaldheim at $85 has a box EV of 87. So Kaldheim is currently selling for less than the EV. That's noteworthy. To give you an example, Strixhaven is not really available for less than $100 or $120 for draft boxes. But the EV of the box is only around $65. So we beat up on Crimson Vow for having a low EV, but it's got a better EV by about $13 than Strixhaven. So, keep that in mind. It's not always about the EV at launch, but as stuff gets older. But Kaldheim and Theros right now have EVs that are higher than their sale prices. So I bring that to your attention. One example of a box that I would buy at $99 all day, but is a far cry from EV, is Zendikar Rising. So next stop on this list, Zendikar Rising I see right now for $93 on Amazon. That is a tremendous buy. I have to tell you, I'm maxed out on Zendikar Rising, but my finger's like hovering over the add to cart button because that's a really tempting price at this stage in the game. Zendikar Rising is going to age incredibly well. I have a lot of conviction when I say that because of the box topper and the expedition alone. That is a tremendous, like unprecedented box topper for a standard draft box. You've seen my previous videos where I've broken down the average value of a Zendikar Rising non-foil box topper, and it's just tremendous. So I won't wax poetic about this box much more because I certainly have a lot in the past. But Zendikar Rising, if you can go out and pick it up for that right now, I think that would be a great buy. Theros Beyond Death as well, and Kaldheim at $85, really good. One thing that's interesting, the reason I've got Strixhaven on the table, hard to find cheap draft boxes, I think, on a consistent basis, but Strixhaven set boosters are currently available for $83 on eBay. That's a really great price. And I want to put up on screen really quick. I was sort of wondering, why is it that the Mystical Archives aren't seeing, aren't considered such a bigger deal? And I was like, well, do I really understand the value of the Mystical Archive, off the top of my head? So I do a quick little breakdown here. So I'll put up on the screen. This is a breakdown of all the Mystical Archives cards in non-foil. So these are the ones, remember, in the booster packs that replace just a common. So in Strixhaven, and I couldn't recall this off the top of my head. I should have had my ducks in a row a little more, but you get a lesson card in every pack because learn was the mechanic. So you get a lesson card, a Mystical Archive card, and then 9 commons, 3 uncommons, and a rare or mythic. So your 9 and 3 is 12. The rare or mythic is 13. The lesson card, I think, is of any rarity. That's what I couldn't recall. The lesson is of any rarity. The mystical archive is also technically of any rarity, although these are pretty fabricated rarities that they have. So in a booster pack, you could get a mythic rare, a mythic mystical archive, and a mythic lesson for whatever, for whatever it's worth with the lesson cards. That to me always seemed like such an interesting value proposition for a standard draft booster. So the Strixhaven Mystical Archives, you can see there's a couple of chase choices, of course. You've got Demonic Tutor and Teferi's Protection at $41 and $38 respectively. There's a steep fall off, but like to what? Time Warp, Natural Order, Tainted Pact, Mizzix's Mastery, Chaos Warp. And then, Counterspell, Lightning Bolt are kind of interesting. But those top 6, 7, 8 cards are staples, even across formats like Commander. They are staple cards. For Wizards to give you the opportunity to pull a Demonic Tutor out of a standard booster pack right behind a borderless Beladros Witherbloom and then a mythic rare lesson card, that's interesting to me.
Hey there, heading into studio mode really quick, just to spend a little moment more on the Strixhaven Mystical Archives. I think I kind of sped through that really quick. What I think is important to know about those as, like I say, the X factor of the box, if you were to break down and look at this like I just did with the $41 Demonic Tutor and the $38 Teferi's Protection, there is the fall off to Time Warp, Natural Order, Tainted Pact, Mizzix's Mastery, Chaos Warp, but those are still good staple cards. The fact that these average out to be about a $3 added value is great. What I didn't really cover was if you got the collector boxes, the foil etched versions are not much higher. The prices for each of them are a little more consistent across the board. So rather than there being a steep, quick fall off to like the 50 cent, 25 cent range in the non-foil etched versions, the foil etched versions are a little higher, the sort of a ramp down rather than a really rapid drop. So that's what gives you an added value of around $4.39 on average per card. That, to me, is not maybe a tremendous amount of value for the collector booster boxes, but there are way different reasons to buy the collector booster boxes. You've got your foil etched, Japanese alternate versions in there. So the value proposition for adding a $3 on average card in place of a common in draft booster and set booster packs is awesome to me. What's important to note, too, is that you're getting genuine value. If you look here at this breakdown of the counterparts to the Mystical Archives, I always like to do this. I like to compare the new versions we're being given and told are better to the versions that we already could go buy. So the counterparts to these, while they are pretty close, they pencil out to around $2.34 on average for a card. I think there's really only about 3 on here that are the cheap. Oh, sorry, and these are the cheapest versions, by the way, I should mention. There are 3 on here where the Mystical Archive actually ends up being the cheapest version, but that's just 3. So the fact that the counterparts are worth about as much as the Mystical Archive that they're putting in, I think is important to know. There doesn't always need to be a premium on the design of the new version of a card. What you're really just concerned with is that they're giving you an extra relevant Magic card, arguably. I know some of these are like nigh unplayable and they don't really fit into any format anywhere, but you have to look at the fact that your common card, which in this set is guaranteed to be really not worth anything. It's not to say that the cards aren't playable, it's just that they don't cost anything. And you're replacing it in every pack with a card that has an average shot of being worth $2.99 in the specific Mystical Archive version, never mind the counterpart. That's what's important here to know. So to me, that is an actual X factor. Remember that the box topper alone in Crimson Vow was worth this much in our previous video where we did an analysis on those. I'm getting this in every single booster pack. So this is one of the reasons that I think Strixhaven in particular is pretty undervalued at $83 for a set box. Like, if you have been looking for something to fill out and I think, ride along with for a few years, the Strixhaven set box is really not a bad thing to consider. So I just wanted to spend some time on that.
I consider that a genuine X factor when it comes to these boxes here. So set booster boxes with the added possibility of a list card and the, maybe random commander insert or something. The set booster box of Strixhaven at $83, I almost want to buy a couple and just open them and see how I do. But I bring that to your attention because I think that Strixhaven is genuinely a good box to think about long term. If you've got room in your, think back to the kind of the strategy I mentioned. If you've got room in your buying or your particular strategic approach to add some Strixhaven, that's a pretty great price to do so. So next I will bring up Neon Dynasty. So let's talk Neon Dynasty for a minute. Here's a stand-in for Neon Dynasty draft boosters because all my cases are sealed and I just don't want to. I was lazy. I didn't want to open them up and put them out on the table. Forgive me. So I just want to leave all the cases sealed. So Neon Dynasty draft boosters. This one I think is really, really interesting. Right now, the EV of a Neon Dynasty draft booster box is about $98. You can buy these boxes for less than that. But the fact that a standard, like in print, standard booster box EV is almost $100 is awesome. That rarely happens. This is just a powerhouse of a set. Like, I cannot get over it. I love the set. I love opening it. I am treasuring the collector boxes I have been able to buy. The cases of those that I haven't sold a single one. They are now eclipsing $300 online on places like eBay. They are certainly cheaper than that, but those cheaper ones, they get sold, and then what's left? The ones that are a little over $300. And if you really want one or need one at that time, you're going to grab it or you're going to wait. It's up to you. But folks have been buying them for close to and at, $300, which is crazy. I mean, in a good way. It's insane that we have a set that we can value that high that quickly. So, but Neon Dynasty draft boxes, I see them for $90 right now. That's a buy to me for sure. I don't know that these ever dip down to like $79.99. I say that, and I was able to scoop up a couple from Troll and Toad via eBay the other day. I don't know why this was happening, but these and Jumpstart were being sold for $78.99 a box. I grabbed a couple and then they were gone instantly. I did not need more of these. I was one of those situations where I'm like, I have to buy a couple of these. I mean, come on. In terms of just dollar cost averaging, I have tremendous faith in the set. I'm going to grab a couple. So when stuff like that comes up, I think it's okay to kind of, go out of your way a little bit, maybe buy something a little off schedule, but, just try to be reasonable, be careful. So the fact that you could get Neon Dynasty for $90 and it's got an EV of 98 is awesome. But I think that Neon Dynasty draft boxes in particular are going to age well. I don't know that they get much cheaper than this in the short term. Maybe they do a little bit. Maybe let's say, the last print run is so big and it's like just a little more than demand and there's a little leftover at the end that people need to dump. But I see these boxes like very quickly sort of becoming like, almost a War of the Spark example, right? Like War of the Spark was a just beloved set at the time it came out. Everybody loved it. It was a home run. It seems like it's a while ago now. It wasn't that long ago. Like, when was the last time you saw the really awesome trailer for this, online? This is from 2019, right? But that was a different time. That was a different era. It was not that long ago, but this set has aged really well, really quick. These boxes are $199 now, just like that. So you bought War of the Spark at $85 or $90 even, and it's $199 3 years later. That's crazy. That's awesome. I mean, it's crazy awesome, but I don't know if Neon Dynasty does that because War of the Spark was bought really heavily. But does Neon Dynasty do that? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I honestly think that Ikoria is on its way to doing that. Ikoria is on its way to that. Throne of Eldraine is on its way. I mean, those boxes, these have snapped up. This is, another thing I'll bring up later, but these boxes shot up. So I wonder if Neon Dynasty moves in the direction of these higher boxes at the same rate that these more successful sets have gone. It's taken certain sets that you just know at the time. We have the benefit of recent hindsight to say, hold on, look, War of the Spark, the writing was on the wall that was a fantastic set. It's beloved. It's got iconic cards in it. We have an incredible marketing campaign that's memorable. This set's a powerhouse. Like, it's gonna age well. And we see now that we are all willing to move the price. Buyers and sellers find each other at a price that's relatively high pretty quickly. I don't know if that happens for Theros. I think that Zendikar Rising moves well. I don't know if that happens for Kaldheim. I'm pretty sure. This is my take. We'll come back to this, I'll see you guys in a few years, right? Gosh. We will see what happens to Neon Dynasty there, but I'm happy to have what I have at the price I have, and I have no intention of letting them go immediately. I'm going to wait and see what I can do and say, a couple few years, but I have a feeling we'll be talking about that not long from now. So one other example that I bring up here, kind of put that off to the side. You'll recall there was a fire sale on Amazon. I talked about this not long ago. Kaldheim wasn't part of it, but Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow, and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms were liquidated on Amazon for $120-something on average each. I don't know what the limit was. I bought 2 of each. This was, again, an off-schedule buy. I absolutely could not wait, let this go by. I had to think about it for a minute. I'm like, is this wrong? Is this like some scam? These all checked out. They're legitimate boxes. They were in great shape. And I got 2 of each at $120-something. The reason that I bring that up is just to say, some of these are cheap. This has gone back to around 180, 179, maybe 189. These are still cheap at maybe 155, 159. Kaldheim you can still find in around 159 or so. But this is an example of just being patient. When I talk about my strategy, the kind of like 6-box method for collector boosters, draft boosters, what have you, the whole point of that is to try and get a reasonable quantity of boxes at a really good price. I'm not in a rush to buy 6 of these as fast as I can. I'm in the window that I can operate, looking to get 6 of these at great prices. We kind of understand now that we have enough collector box history that if you can get a collector box at around $150 to $160-something and you're looking at it, at holding it for a few years, that's a good entry point because they just trend upward. They're a precious commodity. Not a lot of them are printed. They're only printed one time. There are no restocks. That's what makes something like collector boosters pretty unique. So I think that we'll keep that in mind. Be ready for sales like that. But like I say, you're not in a rush to go out at launch and spend $109 times 6 and say, boom, I got my boxes. I'm good. I'm done. You certainly could do that. It depends what your goals are. But if you're trying to buy and hold long term, just be patient. Be patient, wait it out. The deals will come. You might miss the boat on some sets. I sort of missed the boat for some reason on Theros. Like I just wasn't loading up at the time. I don't remember what was going on that I said I need to like hold off for a minute. But you circle back and you wait for reasonable entry points a little later on. I would have loved to spend $85 on Theros instead of, 95 or so like I ended up. But I'm still okay with that as long as I pencil it out and it looks like it's going to meet my goals long term. So I bring these up as kind of as a stand-in or a metaphor for saying, wait until you can see a good deal and then slowly add to your position as you see appropriate. Or if you see an opportunity to go all in and grab everything that you need at like just an unbeatable price, awesome. By the way, I don't know if there was a limit. People were saying that you could only get 3 each of these. I got 2 each, so I didn't really find out if there was a limit. But just something to keep in mind here as we talk about those types of boxes. So at this point, if none of this has excited you or appealed to you and you're like, or you're maxed out on everything and you're like, what do I do? Here is the automatic default for right now for me. You could buy as much Modern Horizons 2 as you will let yourself, as you can store, as you can hold, and it will never be a bad idea. We're going to come back in a year, maybe a year and a half or so, and talk about Modern Horizons 2 and what it did. And I think we're all going to just pat ourselves on the back a bit for saying, look, that wasn't exactly difficult to tell. These boxes are nuts. They are a little more expensive. So I think that's why sometimes it's not as obvious to us because, hey, I can get something for $85. It's the same shape and it weighs the same amount as this. Like, hey, these are both booster boxes. Yeah, I know there's a premium to Modern Horizons 2, but they've made that premium worth it. This is one of those, I guess it's becoming increasingly rare. This is one of those just non-controversial to me boxes in terms of just the value. Forget about the set and the forced rotation in Modern, but this set is just tremendous value. It is a great buy. I think it always will be. It's still $208. So if you have room for your holdings to add some Modern Horizons 2, and you're not enticed by all the other stuff, it just doesn't speak to you, that's completely fine. Modern Horizons 2 will always be my backup default answer to that. Commander Legends I was able to get for $101 from a reputable eBay seller recently. That was awesome. I grabbed just a couple more. I'm okay having a little more, being a little top heavy on Commander Legends because I do plan on opening a decent amount of this with my play group when we all kind of, our lives slow down and we're able to get back together a little more. No downside risk to me here because I'm going to open this stuff. And even if I end up, if Commander Legends doesn't move quick enough financially for me, that's fine. I can hold it long term because it's just got a lot of utility in kind of the main format that I like to play with people. So I'm okay there. Same deal with Jumpstart. Jumpstart's still a pretty good deal. I think you can find it in like the mid 80s right now. That's still fine. We have no idea how this is going to age though. It's going to always have the high-end cards that they put in here, your Craterhoof Behemoths and Allosaurus Shepherds. But the Jumpstart 2, I'm really anxious to see what they decide to pump in there that gets everybody to buy it. In my last podcast episode, I talked about why I thought Jumpstart was the definition of a perfect product. It appeals to everyone for really meaningful, genuine reasons in terms of wanting access to cards, the utility that it has, the on-ramp to new players. So Jumpstart is another maybe like sort of stand-in with Commander Legends still. This not much has changed on this side of the table, if you'll notice, between now and our last video. So I bring those up too as just an option. So set limits, think about deals that pop up, be ready to go. Just a couple of things that we talked about recently that have moved are Ikoria, and let's just talk about Ikoria and War of the Spark, and we'll kind of close this out. So Ikoria and War of the Spark are two boxes that we talked about last time. I said avoid War of the Spark at the time at $150 a box. I still stand by that because $150, it's just hard to predict how fast this stuff's going to move. But War of the Spark's up to $199 now. I don't know that you need to feel like if you didn't have War of the Spark and you didn't buy it at $150, I don't think you need to dwell on that in the slightest. Nobody can see these rapid pops in box prices. I would not have bought War of the Spark at $150 and I didn't, right? So like to me, the boat's left the dock on War of the Spark. If you've got it, great. If you think that War of the Spark is a $600, $500 booster box 10 years from now, and that's your goal, have at it. I think that sets like this are worth what you're paying for them. I'm just looking for a better deal in general. I kind of mentioned that last time. I wouldn't buy something that has a fair price when I could buy something that's like a deal. Or, like these three over here, I think are all deals right now. Ikoria was a box that I said, number one with a bullet last time we talked, and in my sort of quick market update. And then boom, the Pioneer announcement happened and this thing shot up to 120. I think you can get some for 115. If you like it at 115, grab it. If you want to draft a Coria, I loved drafting a Coria. I would buy this at 115 to draft because that's cheaper than buying 36 $4 booster packs at a game store, if you can even get them for $4, and drafting with your friends. So like I would have spent that much money. If I ever draft something, I have to think of what I would have spent at a store or going to any place to just pick up some packs while I'm on my way to a friend's house. Maybe buying a box from that store is a better route. Even if it's a little more than, the $90 you could have spent on eBay, because that's going to pencil out to a pretty good deal if you're planning on drafting. So Ikoria for drafting is still a great price. Ikoria for buying and holding at 120. If you think that this is going to do what War of the Spark's done, have at it. You'd love to look back on War of the Spark and buy it for $120 right now. I personally do think that Ikoria is on the good ramp. War of the Spark, Ikoria, Throne of Eldraine, those are on the recent era, the couple 2-3 year old sets that are really going to move steadily because they just are either super powerful, they're very beloved, or they have a really good value proposition in the form of, like, say, the Godzilla box toppers. So that's where I would pause with those. Eldraine, I mentioned last time also to avoid at $130 a box because I just didn't think that it was moving very quickly or anytime soon. And I thought, like, there are better deals on stuff that stuff that's priced in the 80s and 90s than, say, something at 130. Consequently, you can get Throne of Eldraine for about 125 right now on eBay from some reputable sellers. But I see them selling for upwards of 150. It just depends which website you're on. So Eldraine, I think, is trying to move itself up, and some people that still are selling the boxes at a better price are kind of keeping it from doing so. But once those boxes are gone, I think that Eldraine continues to slide in the right direction. So those are my picks. I dwell lastly, on Crimson Vow as a distressed asset. It is not a box that I would buy at $80 right now like I see it. I maxed out at $75. I just bring this up one more time. Be ready when a deal pops up. I think that in the long run, Crimson Vow is going to be viewed as a set just like any other. And in fact, looking back at kind of the heavy vampire theme, it's got a specific niche audience, It's just something to be said for that. So that's all I've got for now. I really appreciate you sticking around. Thanks so much for the support, by the way, with the channel. I'm blown away. I intended only to ever just kind of get my thoughts out there, and there seem to be a lot of folks that are interested in hearing them. So I thank you all so much for sticking around, for watching the video, for hanging out on the channel. Stay tuned. I've got a lot to come. I'm going to talk about single buying pretty soon here. So you've seen kind of my strategy when it comes to sealed product, but my strategy with singles is not one I've talked about as much. So I'll talk about that a little bit more to come. So what are your thoughts? Do you have a method? Do you have a limit? Do you price things accordingly? What have you been doing lately? Are there better deals? Do you disagree with some of these deals? Anything and everything in between. I always love to hear it. I do my best to respond to everyone because I really just love to talk, if you haven't noticed already. So thanks again. Until the next box goes crazy, I will talk to you later.